So it is time to review The Fallen Star, one of my most anticipated books so far in the High Republic era. Did it meet my expectations? Only one way to find out. Stay tuned. Well, hey guys, welcome to Star Wars on High. Thank you for stopping by. We are back. I'm Josh. That's Jimmy. We are here today to talk The Fallen Star, one of my most anticipated books so far in the High Republic era. I mean, my standards, my expectations were through the roof, and we're going to start this off with a spoiler-free section. So if you have not read it yet, you can stay tuned for about the next 5 minutes or so, and we will clearly tell you when we switch to the spoiler conversation. I just finished this book yesterday, so I'm pretty fresh, and I think, Jimmy, you finished this, last week?
Yeah, I finished it roughly last week.
And you did your own review on the Star Wars Complete channel, so you guys can check out Jimmy's kind of uninterrupted thoughts. But we're going to do this together, as Jimmy is now part of the channel. I wanted to have someone on here to talk about this novel. But let me get rolling with my thoughts. Let's just start with the big picture. How did this book stack up? I thought this was a really, really solid entry into the High Republic. Maybe my favorite novel so far. Maybe. To me, this is a very Empire Strikes Back vibe for the High Republic. It has that high stakes, high, as you can see from the cover, this is not a spoiler, high damage incoming. And I felt that throughout the novel. I felt the stakes were high. I felt the tension. I felt the heartbreak. I felt so invested. I just kept wanting to read more and more. And to me, that is like the ultimate mark of a successful Star Wars story. Jimmy, I didn't watch your review because I didn't want to be spoiled. What are your spoiler-free, just high-level thoughts on The Fallen Star?
Well, first off, I'm really glad you did not watch my review because mine is just riddled with spoilers, but there is a warning at the beginning of that video, so don't worry. But I was really excited for this going in because, for starters, I'm a big fan of Claudia Gray,
Yeah.
huge fan. So when the announcement came out that she was I remember one of the High Republic episodes, they asked what she was doing next, and she
Right.
said, I am working on something, and I'm allowed to tell you that I'm working on it. And that was it. So then a little later on, she came out and said that she's writing the next adult novel, which was
Yeah.
going to be called The Fallen Star. And instantly everyone was like, Starlight Beacon
Oh,
is
crap.
going to crash.
Yep.
It's going to crash.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of confirmed. We got both covers of the book that came out, both one of which showed Starlight a little damaged. The other one showed it completely engulfed in flames. And I have that one here to show.
Yeah, pull it up. It's the background for the video, by the way.
Yeah, just for the example
Yeah.
here, like this. This is the version that comes from out of print.
Yep.
Definitely worth it. I think it's still for sale on their website. I don't think they've sold out yet.
Mine gets here later this week. Yeah.
Just look at that.
Oh, it's beautiful, man. 100%.
And this is like, these are printed on like a very nice, almost like canvas like material. The same with the other two books, Light of the Jedi and The Rising Storm. And you get a cool gift. For example, this one came with this really great hat that I'm wearing today. It says For Light and Life. And they're signed copies, and it's only $50. So you get the book, you get an accessory, and you get it's a signed copy with beautiful artwork for $50. Cool. That's a steal. So if you really want to like go all out, I definitely think you should pick this up.
I think
not sponsored.
Yeah, but open to it. No, I think for me, when Claudia Gray was announced, I really loved her kind of first entry into the series earlier last year, back in February, when she did Into the Dark, right? And I think with the adult novels, they're kind of like the pillars of each wave, right? So they have Light of the Jedi, which got us kicked off. We had Rising Storm, and then of course Fallen Star, and they're like the big three with the kind of smaller stories and comics intertwined to flesh out all the details. And I loved how they all had very different tones. Before we switch to the spoiler talk, you have your really, I think, strong character, strong world building Light of the Jedi. I think you have your kind of heavy action Rising Storm, and then I think you have your tension and conflict filled Fallen Star. They all had different vibes, all had kind of different angles to tell with their stories, and I really liked that they all felt unique. What worked so well for me here, as you guys know, if you've watched the channel before, I'm a big fan of villains. I'm a big fan of our heroes being in peril. I think it is so important for our heroes to have real threat, real fear for them to overcome. That makes the heroes greater when they have to overcome real struggles. So this story does not hold back. I'm not going to spoil anything right here. It does not hold back though in the conflict, in the suffering. It goes full on, no fear here, which I love. There's this misconception by folks who've never read the High Republic that it's some like Disney-fied unicorns and rainbows and everyone is happy and fine and everyone's perfect, and that is just so far from reality. That's the first way you know someone hasn't read the High Republic. If that's their view on it, you know they've never dived in. This gets gritty. It's got gritty from the opening of Light of the Jedi. I'm talking casualties, innocents dying right off the bat, and that has continued throughout. So I really appreciate the adult nature of these books, the mature nature and respect they pay to this kind of property. And so for me, as the kind of end to our trilogy here, I absolutely love how it ended. It's my kind of Star Wars story. It goes dark when it has to. It gives our heroes moments to rise up when they need it. And I left just so pumped for the future of the High Republic and so satisfied with this first year of content. That's kind of my summary. And Jimmy and I are going to do kind of a tier ranking after Midnight Horizon drops next month. We're going to rank all phase 1 books from like tiers. So you can see what ranks among, spoiler alert, it's towards the high. It's towards the high end for me, right up at the top. I really loved this book.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it too. And I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I want to piggyback off of that by saying, you know, the people that claim that it's just some Disney thing that they're doing, this is probably some of the darkest Star Wars content we've gotten. Sure, yeah, Legends got really horrifically dark. This is kind of getting up there as far as like, you know, there's a kill count and it's big.
Yeah.
Even like the middle grade books, you know, A Test of Courage and Race to Crash Point Tower, like even then, like these are meant for like children who are learning to read. Even those are pretty rough at times. Like there's a whole section where Vernestra's apprentice like goes full dark side and tries to attack her. Like it gets a little rough. But for the Fallen Star, I think the best thing about it and the way that they're actually having the authors write these books is that they're writing to their strengths. You know, Charles Soule, he was great at opening up the High Republic to us. We understand what was going on. We knew what the problem was right from the start. Cavan Scott, he's perfect in everything he does. He's great at writing this giant sweeping story that goes from planet to planet that we saw in The Rising Storm. And Claudia Gray is perfect at two things: writing love stories and building tension that will make you sweat. Yeah. This entire book takes place in one location, so it's very drawn out and it's just very high pressure, high intensity the entire time because, you know, we're not leaving this area. You know, we're not going to, it's not like Into the Dark where we're going to leave the Amaxine station and go to Coruscant. We're stuck here and you feel it.
Strong alien vibes in both of Claudia Gray's novels, where you have tension, underlying drama building, and that just keeps you wanting more, right? It reminds me very much of Alien with the slow burn, with the big payoff. You know, I'll wrap it up on the spoiler-free section saying this is obviously a must-read if you're a High Republic fan. Again, I think if you don't know what to read in the High Republic, there's a lot of books and comics. Read Light of the Jedi and see how much you enjoy that, because if you love it as much as I did, you're gonna want to read everything, right? But if you're more of, I don't have the time, you know, you can hit the big three: Light of the Jedi. You can go over to The Rising Storm and then wrap it up with Fallen Star. I encourage you to pick up some of those other novels because they'd really help fill in the gaps. They introduce you to a lot of these characters that kind of pop in the story. But if that's all you can read is those 3 books, I think you're gonna have a great time. So,
and even then, I think that's fine because all of these books are written in the way that you can read all of the adult novels, all of the young adult novels, all of the comics, and still get most of the story. You don't really miss anything by not reading something. If anything, it just adds more to the experience. So either way, if you just want to read those 3 books, you know pretty much all of it.
It's like the prequels. You can watch all those movies and enjoy them for what they are, but if you add the Clone Wars, it enhances it. If you add Bad Batch, it enhances it. If you watch the original trilogy, it then enhances it even more. But of course, you can just watch them by themselves, right? Absolutely. So 2 thumbs up. I don't really give numbers out of 10. It's just not really my style. I can just say it's really great. I love it. You guys should go pick it up. With all of that being said, let's transition to the spoiler side. We're going to be a little freeform here. I have some basic topics to guide our conversation. We want to hear down below your thoughts as well as we dive in. Let's stick with what we kind of ended on there, which is the darkness of this book, the death in this book. One thing I want to highlight, when it comes to the death of characters, what these books don't do is they don't say like, Orla Jareni died as a hero fighting in battle, knowing she'd find inner peace in the stars. It's like, nah, she is like feeling the life get sucked out of her, totally in fear, and that's her last breath and she dies. There's no like heroic death for some of these characters. And I think that's important. That might sound silly, but you can really lighten a character's death, kind of like they do for Stellan in this book, where he kind of goes down with the ship, right? He goes down and he's like, I'm saving innocence and I will be at peace. And it's like, all right, Stellan, you know, going out. But like, there are characters in here where it's like, no, they just like had the life sucked out of them and died a horrific, painful death. And I think that it sounds silly for me to kind of point that out right off the top, but that to me continues to speak to their not dumbing it down, not making it too light. They're showing you that this leveler is no joke. This is not a way to go. And there were characters who suffered all sorts of death, but let's start with the leveler, right? This creature roaming the halls of Starlight Beacon. I feel like I know even less about the leveler after reading this book than I did before. But its damage was palpable. Its presence was awesome. I loved how it literally caused like a disturbance in the Force where it was disrupting the Jedi's ability to focus, to concentrate. They were just consumed with this unease. And then when confronted, when isolated, just totally consumed, drained of their life, drained of the Force, and left for dead. I absolutely loved the use of the leveler in here as this alien. It reminds me of the first Alien, where there's just creature just living in the sides of the ship. And if you confront it in a dark alley, goodbye. That's it for you. What did you think of the leveler? What did you think of its presence in this book?
I mean, just from the start, when we got the first appearance of the leveler in the End of the Rising Storm, I was just like, what could possibly do this at all? You know, I'm going through my inner Rolodex of all the stuff I know from Legends, and I'm like, I know of nothing that can leave a Jedi as nothing but a husk, as we saw with Loden Greatstorm. And then seeing it just casually roam around Starlight Beacon with like no one else seeing it, it's really unnerving. Just the fact that it was just there and no one knew about it.
Yep.
And once they kind of started to figure out, there was nothing they could actually do about it.
Yep.
I think one of the scariest scenes was, it's a little later in the book. I'm thinking it's Elzar. Correct me if I'm wrong here, where he's in a ship and he's like going down this like elevator shaft.
Yeah.
And he like happens to come upon the floor where the leveler is, and he starts to feel really weak. But as he like keeps moving down, his like life starts to come back to him. And I'm like, he was that close, and he just like had made eye contact with this thing, and then just kept going. And they don't, beat around the bush with this thing. It's here, and it will kill whatever is in its path. And the worst part about that is like we don't really get time with those characters. Most of them die off screen.
Yeah.
Or off page, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And we don't get a mourning period. Because that's like how, and that's like literally how it is like with a lot of the times, like when this stuff happens, like even in reality, you don't get time to mourn right when it happens. You're gonna have to deal with it later because you have to figure out, we have Starlight Beacon crashing right now.
Yeah.
I can't take time to worry about Nib Assek or Orla. We have to figure out how to get off of this or it's going to get worse. And that's the part that I think hurt the most, is like we were learning all these characters from the start, and now they're just gone and we're just moving straight past it like nothing happened. It was just like, you really want to hurt me this bad? Okay.
Well, and one thing that I really liked as we talk about the deaths of our heroes and the darkness of this story, I really liked Marchion Ro's plan, as in it was well thought out and didn't have, a lot of room for the Jedi to survive. Of course, they were able to save some, but I like that he really seemed to cover his ground, that he seemed to have. I hate when a villain has like their evil plot and it's like so obviously avoidable, right? He not only secured folks on the ship in a creative way to make them disarm it and take down the beacon, but also as backup released this beast upon the station to just cause havoc, so they couldn't even focus on one problem at a time. I love the fact that it's like, it wasn't like, okay, I have this power in the leveler, but I'm going to keep that on the side, and I'm also going to send these terrorists over to take the ship down. It was like, no, I'm taking this thing down, and I'm putting all of my eggs in this basket. I'm making sure I've covered all the possible routes. I'm going to be picking off Jedi and taking down this thing at the same time. I really enjoyed that because the Nihil do not possess the threat to the Jedi the Sith do, right? None of us think that. But as we've talked about in our streams, and I've said in other videos, I love how they've made the Nihil completely play to their strengths. They go all in. They're murdering innocents. They're causing chaos. They are merciless. They don't really have aspirations for power outside of Marchion. They're willing to end their lives in honor of Marchion. The terrorists in this are like, oh, they're literally suiciding themselves to take this thing down. I absolutely love how reckless, how that's frightening. It's frightening how reckless the Nihil are. It's a challenge to the Jedi because there's only so much you can do to confront that. And I just love that they gave their villain, their Vader, their Ren of the series, Marchion Ro, a truly triumphant moment where he's getting some wins. He's taken out Starlight Beacon. He has shown his power. This is great because I am now invested in how are we going to take out Marchion. He's done some damage. He's actually taken out some Jedi. He's now a threat, right? He's not going to take over the Coruscant and the whole system and start his own government like you might see with the Sith Empire, right? But they're certainly going to take out folks, kill whoever they please, and do some damage. And I think that was just such a good step for this series to take. You introduce an entire new villain group, do it right. And I think they did a great job with Marchion Ro in this story.
And I really think, like, especially with Marchion and his plan, the first, so Light of the Jedi, the Rising Storm, and the Fallen Star could easily be compared to the Dark Knight trilogy in that way. Because, like, literally, Marchion in this story is Bane, and Starlight Beacon is Gotham. Just because, from the start, he purposefully has the Nile attack a bunch of planets that will spread the Republic far away. So by the time they get to Starlight to help, Starlight's already gone. So he's got that part figured out. He's got people going in that are willing to just let themselves die to take down Starlight Beacon. It's like, exactly. They expect one of us in the wreckage. Okay, I'll stay.
Yeah.
That's literally what that reminds me of.
He found some zealots.
People that had no mind just throwing their lives away to make sure that the galaxy knew that the Nile were not to be, forgotten about. They are here for this exact reason of showing fear and showing that the Jedi cannot help them. And he just executes the plan perfectly. Like, as I was reading it, and this is how I know, like, when characters are done really well, because I was getting very frustrated with how well the plan was working. Because the whole time I'm like, well, this is a start. They're going to find a way to come out on top of this in the end. No, they're not. They're absolutely maxed out. They're stretched thin. This is their limit, and they cannot beat this.
What's funny
is it hurts. It's hard to just accept it.
Jimmy and I read stories totally differently because I'm like, oh yes, his plan is working perfectly. I'm like, I love it. I love it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, when I get mad about it, I'm like, why is this working so well? And I'm like, it's just written so well to the point that I'm showing emotion for it. Like, you've done your job right as an author.
Marchion Ro is unsettling in a lot of his personal relationships, and as we've started to learn more about him in the Eye of the Storm, and more of his upbringing, but we've already had a lot of this unveiled in his other novels. I mean, he is a little unsettling, right? And we see that with, I think one of the big reveals from this book was, Senator Staros was seduced, for lack of a better word, by Marchion, right? Brought into the fold, and she's trying to, like, strike this connection. She's like, oh, we have this thing going on. And Marchion, like, when you hear his perspective, it's just like, dude, this chick is so annoying. I'm going to kill her. I cannot wait to just kill her. But he's using her. And that's what I just find so unsettling. He's like, look, I'm going to use her for whatever I need, but, like, she annoys me and I can't wait to just murder her in front of everyone. I'm like, yo, this dude's unhinged. Like, this guy is uncomfortable. He doesn't have allies. He's recruiting by the end of the book, a droid army for his force going forward. He's like, I'm tired of people trying to, which I love, by the way, because he was constantly under threat from the other, Tempest runners on trying to stab him in the back. And he's like, I'm just removing that whole problem. I like how he systematically got them all killed. He basically got all of them killed off except for Lorna D, who's out there somewhere, we believe, right? I love that he in the early books, he played to, like, unity and the Nihil to get people really bought in, but the aspirations have always been for his glory. In the end of this book, when he's given his monologue, he's like, I know I should say, we are the Nihil or whatever, but he basically is like, you should fear me. I'm the best. He turns it all about himself because that's who he is. And I like that. That to me is on character. It's on point. I've enjoyed Marchion Ro a lot. He's maybe, I'm gonna say one of my favorite characters in the High Republic, not because I'm rooting for him, but because he makes the story so interesting. He's been I love all of his chapters. Whenever he pops up, I'm like dialed in to hear what's going on with him. So I don't know. This whole thing for me has been a really awesome, awesome path to watch with this character.
No, and I'm thinking the same thing because um, as soon as they were like announced like our new villain are the Nile and they're like space Vikings, we're just like, how is this going to match up against the Jedi?
Exactly.
Like sure, the Separatists were not much different. They were just droids, but it was just like you had an endless amount of them, and the Sith were backing them at the same time.
Yes.
So you've got that. So Jedi versus Sith, that's pretty evenly matched. Anything else you think the Jedi can handle, but the Nile are just completely different. And the fact that they've able to make them a true threat and found ways for them to seem like a threat to Jedi, which at times seemed like indestructible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that was something that was probably really hard to come up with. So having that be such a successful villain in this franchise, I think it's wonderful.
We should make a video called like the body count of the Fallen Star, because there's quite a few folks who beat us. I will highlight the big three right now. We have Orla Jareni, who I was very sad to see her go. I really liked that character. The first Jedi Wayseeker we were introduced to. Really cool character design with the all white with the glowing white blades as well, the flip style. Really liked her character. She had minor parts in several stories, had very interesting perspectives about the Force. So I really enjoyed hearing her talk and her insight. And she got just destroyed. I mean, her chapter when she dies is like, oh man, that was a terrible way to go.
It's upsetting.
It is. Of course, the big one, Stellan. One of the big three, Stellan, Avar, and Elzar. Stellan has fallen, which was actually kind of surprising to me. I think we talked before. I kind of would have put my money on Avar. I thought they were going to do Avar dies, and that kind of leans Elzar in more to the dark side struggles because he's lost one thing that really grounded him. Anakin references here, right? They did not go that way. They went with Stellan, who I felt Stellan as a character had a tough go of it in these books. He felt like he was always trying to do the right thing. He always was under a ton of pressure. He always was under a ton of expectations. And I felt like, had a very realistic story arc. It wasn't like in the first book, he was like, I'm trying to, lead the Jedi. In the second book, it's like he's earned his medal. It's like he constantly was trying to struggle with his friends, with other Jedi on how to lead. He's conflict with Avar, conflict with Orla. He's, trying to be this idealistic Jedi and struggling to find that balance between, doing what he feels is right and doing what the Order thinks is right. And so he had a very complicated, I think, kind of character, and ends up sacrificing himself to save lives in the ship. Kind of a fitting end to the character as a hero doing the right thing. But definitely one of the big three. We were down a star, right?
Yeah, and hearing the constellation reference that Elzar kept making, like I cried at the end of that book just because of like I could just understand like this is the most hurtful thing, and Elzar is going to spend
fallen star.
Oh, don't do that to me. Elzar is going to spend the rest of the High Republic blaming himself for this because of another incident that occurs. I'm sure we'll get to here in a second. But I think my money was on Stellan from the start. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure I had said, I was like, I think Stellan's going to be the one because he's the face of the Jedi to the rest of the galaxy, because he's always on the hollows. He's always being interviewed. He's the one that has to come up strong. So knowing that like he is now out of the picture, like it's just, it's shocking.
It's a big blow. The other one, I mean, there's more than just three, but the other one is Burry, right? It's got to be Burry Yaga.
Yeah.
Now we don't know hard confirmed.
Allegedly.
Yeah, we don't know hard confirmed he's dead. I strongly believe he's dead.
I think so.
And that was a very surprising one for me because Burry Yaga's young. I thought Bell and Burry Yaga were safe picks. I could definitely see them killing off the masters and the adults a lot more carefree. But Burry Yaga goes down fighting
two
for Elzar. Yeah, two Rathars for Elzar. And, Burry Yaga is a character who's, on the cover of the young child's book that came out, what's that book called? I don't have a copy of it yet.
I think it's Battle for Starlight.
fighting a Rathtar. I don't know what they're going to do with the kid's book if he's going to go down dying in that book, or maybe we'll have to read it and it'll find out. But to me, those are the big three. Three characters. One very, very important character to the story, and Orla and Buryaga are what I would call high level, or they're a step above minor characters. They had significant roles in several books and comics. They had their presence seen in many different. So those to me were the big three. I don't know. Did I miss anyone? Are those the big three for you as well?
I mean, I think so as well. I know there are other mentions, like there was a new Jedi, Regal Cole. I liked his personality. He had a very like joking, laughable personality, and I really appreciated that. But he didn't last long. But not only Buryaga, but Buryaga's master Nib Assek went as well.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
And one that was very overlooked, and I'm blanking on the name, but because the top half of Starlight, when it gets destroyed, goes straight into the atmosphere and just burns up. Everyone on board is confirmed dead, including one of the Jedi that was very prominent in the comics. He was always at the helm.
Is it Maru?
Looking at, yeah, Maru. I was gonna say the guy was always on the computers and all.
So I wasn't clear if he made it off with Avar or not. That's a good question. I have no idea.
I mean, I may have misread that, but like, cause I'm pretty sure.
No, I wasn't clear either.
Stellan was like talking about it, like, yeah, Maru was gone because he was on the top of the station.
And that's the thing. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in the next couple of books, but that would be a large one as well.
So, because that's what I'm wondering, like, because if he does, and they just like kind of like didn't address that, like. They are cold authors.
I'm totally blanking on. There was another larger minor character introduced. Well, discussed a lot in Out of the Shadows. I'm completely blanking on her name. She was building the gravity well. Yeah, but Chansey's mom, isn't it?
No, Chansey is the
mom.
Chansey,
okay, sorry.
Yeah, Chansey Yarrow.
Oh, you're right. Yes, Sylvester. That's right. Sorry, I had him flipped. She dies. she gets cut in half.
That is an important thing to talk about, because the entire time Chansey and Nan's part of the book is okay. They spend literally the entire time trying to find a way off, and they're just getting mad because the Nile have thought of everything, as was I. So in that last portion of the book where they're like, we got to try to save it to get ourselves off, and Chansey's in the midst of trying to put all of the power into the thrusters to push it away from the city. And Elzar just jumps the gun, knowing that they're not, and just cuts her in half instantly.
Cuts her in half.
No hesitation, and it shocked me. And the part that hurt the worst in that scene was Nan looking at him and just saying, "You've killed us."
Yeah.
Because wow, was that painful.
I, as the dark side sympathizer that I am, I have to say, like, I know this is not the way Elzar would ever look at it, and he shouldn't. And I know he's going to struggle with this for a while. And he doesn't have all the context that we do as readers.
Yeah.
But it's their own fault, because they consistently, instead of being upfront and being honest, tried to use things for their benefit. They assisted the Nile saboteurs originally when they thought it'd be for their benefit to hurt some Jedi. They then realized by assisting and taking part, doomed themselves, then selfishly attempted to save only themselves in the escape pods. Right? The only reason they're in the position to try to save the ship was for their own gain, right? Consistently lying, in Chansey's case, was building a weapon that could cost hundreds of thousands of lives, consistently putting herself first. And because of those actions, when a Jedi had to make a split decision in self-defense, or what he might have identified as, self-defense, but I understand it was fueled by anger, makes the cut. Well, that's her own. Like, those are the decisions that you've made that have led you to be cut in half in that moment. And I understand it's not the Jedi way to look at it, but that was literally my look at it when it happened. I'm like, she did everything to put herself in that spot. There's 100 times they could have volunteered to help in different ways, but they were always looking out for themselves. They were completely focused on themselves. And at the end, Nan is like, I'm going back to the eye, right? So she wasn't like some changed person either. They were always looking out for themselves, and it cost them their lives. And I felt like it was deserved. So anyway,
I think it's a really tricky situation, because on the one side I do agree with you, but on the other side I'm like, when they were captured, they did full on say we're not with the Nile anymore, which was true. They were not. Fair. And the Jedi were just like, I don't know about that, and then just kind of left them there, and to the point where they're like, did the Jedi forget about us in here? Which kind of is what happened, not intentionally forgetting, but the fact that like everything else was going on.
They kind of did.
So. the Jedi could have tried to make an effort to like figure out what was going on there, but as a result, but at the same time, yeah, you also just saying we're not with the Nile anymore. You refuse to give them anything else.
Yep.
Chansey especially just wanted to keep her mouth shut the
Yep.
entire time. So I mean, like she had it coming. Now the problem that comes with that is you got Chansey Yar, who's now dead. You've got the Senator Staros, who is going to be dead at some point. I'm just sure of that. And now you've got two daughters on both sides. You've got Avon Saros that we saw in A Test of Courage, who's going to be coming back, I think, in Midnight Horizon.
She is. I started that today. Yes.
So there's that problem. Wait, Midnight Horizon, you started that?
I have it on auto. Oh, not Midnight Horizon. She's in.
She's in Mission to Disaster.
Mission to Disaster.
Yes, that makes much more sense because the same character. So she's back. So that's going to be an issue to deal with when she finds out about her mom. And now Silvestri, who I'm sure we'll see again, doesn't have a mom.
Yeah.
And the whole time, like Chansey was trying to make the effort to like get her daughter back, but she's still a really bad person. So either way, that's going to be a great conversation.
So for me. You have some seeds there to like have people turn against the Jedi. Like Elzar's damage there has caused some people to turn against, the Order. I'm sure that'll be played out in future stories. One of the big things I thought about as this was wrapping is we're going to get some more comics and some more stories, but we're about to take a time jump, which means a lot of these things are going to be left unsettled.
Yeah.
For a while. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I want to be invested in this. Now, I don't think we're going to get full wrap up on this era in the next couple comics in Midnight Horizon. I'm sure we'll make some more headway, but I have a feeling that some of these questions are going to leave unresolved fully. And we might have to wait till phase 3. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's just kind of
I think that's exactly what we're going for there.
So I'm very excited about that. We spent a lot of time focusing on the dark aspects. I mean, the truth of it is in this story, in this 13 to 15 hour story, it really is centralized in one place. A lot of the reading is the tension and the kind of watching events unfold. To me, the tone of this terrorist attack had that very somber feel to it. It was very gritty to me. Again, so many folks talking about the High Republic being like every Jedi is perfect and everything is great. It's like, no, like this is some pretty dark things we're dealing with here. Real literal terrorists, killing innocents, killing themselves. It's dark stuff. And I felt that throughout, and was pretty impressed that they were willing to go this direction. So I want to call that out again and give kudos. For me, I think I said this before, I'll just reiterate it here. I really enjoy tension-filled storytelling where I got to come back. I feel my characters, are struggling. How are they going to get out of the situation? What is going to pop up next? And Claudia Gray does that really well. It's why, Into the Dark was one of my favorite of the first wave. And I think Claudia Gray just knows how to write these kind of stories for me. And I think that was displayed here again. So full credit where it's due. I was going to say,
Claudia is just, she's such a great author. The first book I read from her was Lost Stars, which to this day is probably my favorite Star Wars book. I truly, truly love that story. But I think the best part about it is that with something like this, she's able to take characters that she's created in other properties, or not other properties, but other stories within the High Republic, and then bring them into other ones as well. So like, I think the best subplot of this book was that the crew of the vessel is back. Yeah. We got Leox Josley, we got Affie Hollow, and of course the guy Geode, who had a phenomenal role in this book. Like I kept tweeting that like Geode was stealing the spotlight all the time, and he really was, because I don't know how it's possible for Claudia to write about a character who doesn't speak but has all the mannerisms of a person, to the point where we have characters that were jealous because Geode was flirting with their significant other, and I'm like, he's a rock. What do you mean? I just love that so much.
The vessel was a large part, and that was something I was actually going to transition to here, so right on time. Nice. I think the vessel was used really effectively, the crew of the vessel, as kind of your civilian plotline, your locals. I think they introduce a new character. So they introduce some conflict on the ship with, as the ship is crashing, folks are starting to get nervous and they want to try to look out for themselves, which was, I think, obviously the less interesting conflict that was happening. But I can buy it as a realistic scenario. I could see that happening as people start to panic. They start to kind of look out for themselves and freak out. So I bought that. The vessel had a large part. The crew of the vessel had a large part in managing that conflict and trying to work with the Jedi. I think Leox was actually really stand out in this book. You know, Leox, when they released the concept art, had kind of this flamboyant look. I think everyone thought he was going to be like this really boisterous, effeminate, but it's like, no, he's Matthew McConaughey. I mean, that's exactly what he is. And if he was if they did a movie, I think he'd be one of like the fan favorite characters. He's very chill, reserved, he's just got that kind of common presence. And I think the character it's the judge the book by the cover kind of thing there, on full display. I thought Leox had a really strong point in the series. For me, one thing the High Republic has had to balance is quantity of characters. There's a lot of characters they've introduced, far more than we saw in the original trilogy and even in the Clone Wars, before they were fleshed out again in the animated shows and in the comics and books, etc. We have a lot of characters to keep track of. And so it's a hard balancing act, to try to juggle all those storylines. They are going to run into a point, I think, where they have too many characters. I who read all the stories, I get a good picture. Yeah. But if you are only reading a handful of these, I do think that sometimes the just vast amount of characters and names and relationships might be overwhelming. So I would caution the authors and maybe being wary of that. But for really invested fans like you and I, it's cool to see those characters have arcs and get rewards and have stories continue from book to book. But just something that kind of stuck out to me is something that could be a negative to certain fans.
No, and I get that. Yeah, it really does get a little overbearing at times because when you have a lot of these reoccurring characters, sometimes I read the name, I'm like, I know this name. Where do I know it from?
Yeah,
and having to stop and look characters up, it can be a little irritating at times. But honestly, it's a little thing, and it's to be expected. Like hell, you look at a lot of the Legends books from like the New Jedi Order and Legacy of the Force, and you have literally I think it's called the Dramatis Persona, in the very beginning of the book, that gives you all of the characters, their race, and their role. Like this person's a Jedi, this person's a bounty hunter, etc. So like we get it. There's a lot of characters. It's going to be hard no matter what it is. But I think the best part is that at least with the High Republic, a lot of these characters are being made so memorable from their first appearances that when they reappear, you instantly know who they are, as the case with the vessel. And if one thing comes out of this, I would love a comic line just on the crew of the vessel, just doing whatever. I think that would just be so much fun, because they had a really important role in that, in keeping somewhat of the peace, because that was another character that really irritated me, was that when they land, they realize that there is a ship on board called the I think it's called the Ace of Spades. And
it's not Spades, but it's a play on that. It's supposed to sound like Ace of Spades. It's like the Ace of something else, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's something similar to that, but it's driven by someone by the name of Coley Lynn, who used to work with the Buying Guild that Affy has since dispersed.
Right.
And he's holding a massive grudge against them. And he's such a frustrating character. I just wanted to slap him in the back of the head.
But he's the worst.
To the point where he's like actively trying to make alliances with people that he would stab the vessel's crew in the back and leave them for dead on Starlight Beacon. He's so worried about himself. And he even knows that I'm sure everyone he's making an alliance with, he would ditch in a heartbeat without hesitation, to the point where he gets so desperate that he takes a child hostage, which I was just like, dude, what are you doing?
So in the audiobook, they do like background sounds. They do background sounds, and in that whole scene, they have a baby crying in the background, and it was like, it was so annoying, like, because it was like loud. I was like, dude, it kind of made you angry at him because there was like an actual baby crying.
Yeah,
I thought this. I will tell you as a side note, if people have watched this long, this is one of the stronger audiobook performances. I thought the music had really good moments. I thought the sound effects had some good fine tuning where they came in at good times, etc. So I thought this was a really strong audiobook performance, but just something to call out.
And I think with that scene, they play it so well. It's like, you leave little crumbs that you can come back to later. Because in that scene, when everyone's getting riled up and they're like talking to the Jedi, can't you just open the blast doors and let us out? And they're like, it doesn't really work that way. So to the point where Coley just opened fires in the place because everything is magnetically sealed, as we've seen with the trash compactor in A New Hope. The laser just bounces everywhere until it's either going to hit a ship or a person. Now, I'm pretty sure it hit a ship that first time, but Affy was really worried because
I think it didn't hit Geode both times.
Did it? Because that's
I
the
think
part I
it
was
did.
going to
I
get
think
to.
I think it
Because
both times.
it
Yeah.
hit Geode, which stopped it, and oh, that's right, because it does. And
Yeah.
Geode's like, nah, it's nothing.
Yeah.
But his race can choose to be magnetic or not,
Yeah.
I guess, which is
Uh-huh.
just wild. So when that happens and he takes that child hostage, Geode steps right in front of him, and Coley takes a shot at Geode again, chooses to be magnetic, and the blast bounces right
Mhm.
off of him back into Coley. And for one, great play from Geode. I thought that was tremendous. And the fact that they mentioned that earlier and then it comes relevant later on, I'm just like, that's just great storytelling.
It was a lot of fun. I think, we're 40 minutes in. I think we've kind of made our points clear that
Oh, wow. Has it already been
this
40
has been
minutes?
40 minutes. There's so
Wow.
much to talk about with this book that I really enjoyed. Overall to me, it's just another win for the High Republic era. I think there are definitely stories or comic runs that might vary for folks. But I think again the big three: Light of the Jedi, Rising Storm, and Fallen Star. I think are beyond solid and just really great entries that a lot of people I think have skipped out on based on some of the narratives that's been there. And that's a bummer. So I hope more fans pick it up. I hope as we move into new phases and we get new video games and new shows in this era that folks return to these stories and dive in. My last thoughts would just be I can't wait to see where it goes next. I really can't. And that's exactly how a book should leave me. It's the Empire Strikes Back to me of these books. It ends with like, hey, the bad guys got a dub. They got the W. Let's how are we going to respond? And I like that a lot. I love when the bad guys win because it's like it is a little bit like the Dark Knight Rises, right? Where Batman gets bodied the first time he fights Bane, and
Yeah.
he's got to rise up, right? That's the story, and I like those kind of stories. Any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, and really, it's just the fact that there have been a few low points in the High Republic, but nothing has bombed. All 7 of the books have made the New York Times bestsellers, so like that's got to stand for something. And if you've watched this long and you haven't read any of these and you just chose to watch it, honestly, for one, thank you. But if anything, I would say at least just give it a try. If you were very hesitant about these books, at least start with the first one. And if you don't like it, but you want to try to keep going, pick up the comics. It's lighter reading. You don't have to buy an entire book. At least put forth the effort. And after that, if at the end of the day you don't like it, you gave it an honest effort, and that's all that really matters. But I definitely think for a lot of the fans of Star Wars that are enjoying this, you are definitely missing out if you don't continue reading through the High Republic, because it's only going to get better.
I think so. I think so. We'll wrap it up there. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Make sure you guys let us know how you felt down below. What did you think about this book? Have you read it yet? Are you going to read it? I know some folks are still behind because there's so much reading to do in Star Wars. Always something new coming out and more on the way. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for stopping by. Make sure you stop by on Thursday nights for the live stream. Until then, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see you again very soon.